Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I will explain about classification aims and principles. It is the second topic in chapter 3 of biology. So, how many plants and animals they have been reported till today? The total reported approximate numbers of animals are around 1.5 million, while less than 0.5 million types of the means that species of plants they have been reported. If we go to the exact figure, it will be 391,000 plant species which have been reported till date. However, there are more than these numbers which are still not reported. So only small percentage of the total types of plants are known till date. So more plants still we have to explore, more animals and their types and their species. So still we don't know that how many numbers they are still unidentified. So all these organisms they range from simple and small bacteria, which are unicellular organisms, up to the more complex and large like human being. So where do all these living organisms they live? They live in sea, they live on the land. Some of these organisms they fly, some of them they walk, and some they are stationary. So what does stationary mean? Stationary means that these living organisms they do not move from their places. Example is about the plants. So plants they have the roots, and due to the roots they are anchored in the soil, so they cannot move from one place to the other place. And in these organisms, their way of lives they are diverse and they are different. Each organism has different way of life, so they have different modes of nutrition. They generally avoid unfavorable environmental conditions. All the living organisms they will prefer to be in that environment or to be in that environmental condition that these conditions they may be favorable for their lives and for their food. So they will always avoid unfavorable environmental conditions. And every organism they have differences in finding a place to live. A place to live is generally explained by the term habitat, and they have different types of reproductions. So there are diverse kinds of organisms, and it is generally difficult to learn about characteristics of each organism if we have these numbers in millions. So what is the possible solution? To study these large collections, the biologists they classify organisms into groups and into subgroups, and when they need to classify these organisms into groups and subgroups, they always need some system, some effective system, so that they can easily organize these organisms on the basis of similarities, on the basis of differences into groups and subgroups. So there is one of the methods which is known as the biological classification, which the biologists they use it and they divide organisms into groups and subgroups. So for biological classification, two branches of biology they are dealing with it. One of them is known as taxonomy and another is known as systematics. So systematics was actually after the taxonomy, the systematics was established. Taxonomy is the branch of biology that deals with classification of living organisms, while systematics it deals not only with classification but also it traces the evolutionary history of the organisms. So what are the aims of classification? The first aim of the classification is to find or to study the similarities and differences among organisms, So these organisms, they can be easily studied. And also the second point of the second aim is to find the evolutionary relationships among these organisms. Now, what is evolutionary relationship or evolutionary history? For example, this is one of the diagrams that which shows that all these living organisms, they were at some point they were very close to each other, but later on what happened that 9 to 13 million years ago, this orange color monkey was separated from it, and then the other living organisms similar to it, they were evolved, and then this evolution separated the gorilla-like monkeys from it around 8 to 5 to 12 million years ago, and then so at each time period the evolution occurred and each group of organism was separated. Like human being is more closely related to these two monkeys based on this branch here as compared to the other two monkeys which were evolved earlier. So this is the evolutionary relationship. This diagram is just only for information. It's not in your course, so just for information so you can understand it. However, the evolution of five kingdoms, this one is in the same chapter, that Monera, these were the first organisms on earth. They were evolved, and from Monera the Protista were evolved from it, which are Euglena. In kingdom Monera, the different kinds of bacteria are there. These are unicellular. From Protista, three different groups were evolved: plants, fungi, and animals. So the plants and fungi and animals, they will have they will have been evolved from the Protista at some certain time period which is still not known. So this is this diagram shows how we will be closely related to all these organisms. Basis of classification. So what is the basis of classification? We always study similarities in characters. And second point, the relationship among the organisms we generally study. So these similarities, they give us an idea that how closely related these organisms are. So similarities, when we study any similarities, it suggests that all organisms are related to one another at some point in their evolutionary history. So here is an example, like the example is given in the book is about the pigeon and the sparrow. So pigeon and sparrow both are the birds, and they can fly also. So while the other example is given about the ants. So ants, they can crawl on the surface of the earth or on the surface of the tree, and they cannot fly. So these are insects and these two are birds. So we can say that sparrows and pigeons, they are more closely related than ants. So what will be the conclusion? The conclusion will be sparrows and pigeons and sparrows, they have the common evolutionary history. They were evolved at some point together. So when we classify organisms into groups and subgroups, we generally study similarities based on their external structures, so we call it morphology. And when we study internal structures, then it comes under the study which is known as anatomy. And when we study stages of development and find the similarities between organisms at different stages of their developments, so then this study comes under embryology. However, the genetics or modern genetics has also been included, that that the biologists, they recommend that we need to study the genetic characters or the inheritance which is generally transferred from their parents to the offspring, and on the basis of the similarities of the genetic characters, so the organisms, they can be classified. So which the chemical material inside the cells is responsible for the inheritance or for transferring the characters from the parents to the offspring. This is in fact the nucleic acid. Nucleic acid is inside the nucleus, and nucleic acid they make chromosomes. So chromosomes are actually, they are made up of the different types of the nitrogenous bases are there. So I will not go in detail here, but just to show that in modern genetics, the modern genetics provides information about similarities and differences in the DNA of two organisms, and it gives an idea about the similarities and differences in their structure. So in the DNA, there are different types of the 4 different types of nitrogenous bases are there. Sugar group is there and phosphate group is there, and these DNA molecules, when they have some specific chemical pattern, they will give us the differences and similarities. So I will not explain here, I will explain somewhere in the in other chapters. Hierarchy. So for the classification, hierarchy is important, especially when we go for the biological classification. So hierarchy, it is an arrangement of items from higher rank to the lower rank or vice versa. For example, this is the hypothetical diagram that in some company there is a board. The members of the board, they decide something, and when they decide, they issue orders. So these orders, they are transferred to the president, and then under the president there will be several vice presidents, and then it goes to vice president, and then under the vice president there will be several department heads, and from department heads the orders, they are conveyed to supervisors, and then finally it reaches to employees. So this is the hierarchical pattern from higher rank to the employees, up to the employees, which is the lower rank. So the board and president and vice presidents, they will be fewer in number, while the employees, they will be numerous in the company. So this hierarchy is in every organization, or even in the families also, that we always have grandparents, then from the grandparents they have children also, and then our parent and uncles are there, and then our parents, they have children also, and then their children are there. So this is also hierarchy. For taxonomy, for the biological classification, we use taxonomic hierarchy. So what is taxon? Taxon is the word which can be used for any one individual or group of individuals. So it is also known as taxonomic category. So group of organisms, when they are together and they are classified, so we will also use taxon word for it. And the plural of taxon is taxa. So taxa, they form ladder like taxonomic hierarchy, like this company, from the board to the employees. So highest rank in the taxonomic hierarchy is kingdom, and lowest rank is the species. So here is the definition of taxonomic hierarchy. It is a process of arranging various organisms into their successive levels or ranks of the biological classification, and they will be either decreasing order, or they will be either in an increasing order, and they will be from kingdom to species. So kingdom is the highest rank, and there are few kingdoms, 5 kingdoms are there, and species is the lowest rank. So there are less than 0.5 million species are there in plants, and 1.5 million species are there in animals. So organisms are divided into 5 kingdoms. This one I have explained. This is the largest taxon, this is the largest rank, and species is the smallest rank or smallest taxon. So taxonomic hierarchy is here, explanation is here, that for kingdom we can explain that there are 5 kingdoms and each kingdom has a group of phyla. Division is used for the plants. Phylum or division is generally termed for the rank in plants and fungi. So in phylum there is group of related classes, and in these classes they have group of related orders. Inside an order they have group of related families. Inside the families they have group of related genera, and then genus, it has group of related species. And then what is a species? It consists of similar organisms. It is the basic unit of classification, and we can define the species that they can interbreed freely among them. Yani they can mate with each other and they can produce children when they have the reproduction within their same species. And when they will have reproduction, so they can produce fertile offsprings. Now, what is the meaning of fertile? Fertile means that those offspring or those children, they will also be able to produce their children. But these organisms, they are reproductively isolated from all other organisms in the nature. So we will start this with two examples of the about human and P, and what will be their taxonomic hierarchy from kingdom up to the species. So first we will start with human example. Kingdom Animalia is there. Inside the kingdom there is the phylum, that is chordata. Chordata is used for those organisms they have vertebral column, they have bones. Then inside chordata there is the class, that is Mammalia class. So mammalian organisms are those which are able to produce child also, and they are able to produce milk. So order primates is there. Inside the primate there is the family, that is Hominidae, and inside Hominidae there is the genus Homo, and the species for human being is used sapiens. But whenever we write, we always write genus first and species afterward. Genus alone can be written, but species alone cannot be written, because it will not give us any meaning. Therefore, when we write the name of when anybody asks that write the species for the human, so we have to write Homo and sapiens together. But if they ask only genus, then Homo is enough for it. In plants, the kingdom is Plantae, and the phylum is Magnoliophyta. If we find this phyta at the end of any name, so it is confirmed that we are talking about the division here. So in plants, whenever there is plant ranks in the taxonomy, whenever phyta is there, it will be the division, and whenever Opsida is there, it will be the class. So the class for P is Magnoliopsida. The order for P is Fabalis. So Ales, ALES, whenever it will be at the end, so it will be the order in the hierarchy. And ACEAE, at the end of any term, if ACEAE is written, it will be considered as a family name. So for P, the family name is Fabaceae, and inside this Fabaceae family, genus can be written in a variable pattern. So there is no specific pattern. So and species also. So Pisum sativum is the species for P. So Plantae was kingdom. Inside the Plantae, Magnoliophyta is a division. Inside Magnoliophyta, class is Magnoliopsida. Inside the class, the order is Fabaceae, and inside the order, the family is Fabaceae, and genus and species are Pisum sativum. So this one I have already explained that species, but whenever in exam if they ask define species, so all these points should be written, that it is the basic unit of classification. It consists of similar organisms and it can interbreed freely, not with other organisms in the nature, but among themselves. And when they will produce fertile offsprings, so these offsprings, they will be able to produce their own children. That's why the fertile word is used. But all these organisms which can interbreed among themselves, they are reproductively isolated from all other organisms. So their reproductive structures and reproduction time period is completely different from other organisms. So each species, it possesses its own structural, ecological and behavioral characteristics. So here is an example that what is the meaning of they can interbreed freely among them. So these two birds, they are from the same species, so they can, male and female, they can interbreed among them. But these birds, they cannot interbreed with eagle. Why? Because the eagle reproduction system and eagle reproduction time is completely different from all these birds. So in nature, the birds, they cannot breed with the eagle. So even both are the birds and both they can fly. So, but sometimes it is possible that interbreeding, another word for interbreeding is crossbreeding. So crossbreeding is done artificially. Now what is crossbreeding or interbreeding? Crossbreeding is whenever the cross of the male and female, male sperm and the female egg is done between two closely related species. Between the two, not within the. Within we already explained that within will be the same species, but two different species, but they are closely related. But what will be the result? The result, there will be an offspring, but that offspring will be infertile. Infertile means that they cannot produce their children. So here is an example that horse is generally female horse is crossed with male donkey, and the result was infertile mule. Infertile mule was produced. Infertile means that this mule is not able to produce its own children. So what is the criteria for interbreeding and species recognition? Species recognition criteria can be used among the same group of organisms, but it cannot be used for the species in which they have asexual reproduction. It means that they produce asexually. What does it mean? Asexual reproduction means they do not have sexual reproduction, and these organisms or species, they do not interbreed with one another. For example, unicellular organisms. So here is an example just for understanding that what is sexual reproduction, that an egg of the female, it fuses with the sperm. So sperm travels and reaches to the egg, and when they are fused together, fertilization occurs, zygote is developed. This zygote develops into an embryo develops into infant then into the baby, and then to boy, and then so on. Different stages of life are there. In asexual reproduction, what happens in asexual reproduction? The parent cell divides into two, and then two new daughter cells are produced. So in asexual reproduction, there was no sexual reproduction. Sperm and egg combination was not involved, just it was simple cell division and the nuclei were divided. Thank you very much.